Hey, shout out, folks. It's Bob the Old Rucker here. Redbeard and I and the rest of the shout out team pray you are having an amazing, incredible, and wonderful day. Hey, do you have shameless plugs for events happening in your area? Let us know. We're all about getting the good word out. Check out the show notes for opportunities to have fun in an alcohol, drug, and judgment-free zone. Hey, wow. Thanks to you anonymous donors this week for hitting up the donate link at shoutoutfromthepit.com. We're humbled by your generosity. $1 here and $1 there helps with business cards, equipment upgrades, technology, and platform fees. Friends, all we desire to do is get hope and inspiration to the hurting. Your donations helps us to do just that. Hit the donate link on shoutoutfromthepit.com and drop $1 for the cause. And if you would like to support the show with business cards, equipment, technology, or gift certificates or items for our guest, please let us know on the contact page or call or text 501-613-8915. And not a single dollar goes to any member of the shout out team. We are all just volunteers and grateful to serve. Thanks for helping us spread hope, love, and inspiration. Speaking of 501-613-8915, that's an unmonitored number where you can leave voice messages and text. Stop what you're doing right now and call or text 501-613-8915 and leave us some inspirational, motivational messages. We'll give you a shout out and include your message on the podcast. That number again is 501-613-8915. Looking forward to getting pumped up with your shout out. Hey, we don't want you to miss any of our episodes, so be sure to sign up at shoutoutfromthepit.com, Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, or anywhere you listen to the show. Like, join, and share the hope, love, and inspiration with the masses. You'll get Diane's missives full of awesome tools and encouragement, daily insights from the shout-out team, and episodes designed to edutain as you trudge the road to happy destiny. As always, it's for free and for fun. And we love your feedback. Y'all sincerely bless us and let us know we're on the right track. Please keep sending those suggestions on how we can improve your show. This is the People's Show, your show, a platform where your message can be heard and shared with people looking for hope and good news. We want to share your story, how you overcame your hurt, habit, or hang up, and what you do to maintain a healthy, happy life today. Contact us at shoutoutfromthepit.com. We're looking forward to meeting you and sharing your story with us and the world. And be sure to join our growing family of optimistic folks on Facebook. The Shout Out team thrives on positive, optimistic, humorous, and inspirational memes, good news stories, and anything that brightens the day and shares hope. Hey, humble reminder. These raw and uncensored recovery episodes are about real people with real struggles and real solutions. And now, on with the show. Hey, shout out, folks. It's Bob the Old Rucker coming at you raw and uncensored. And as always, only God knows what's going to happen on this show. Welcome to Shout Out from the Pit, where the host sucks, but the guests are awesome. Brett, thank you for taking time out of your day to join us.
Glad I could be here.
You're so awesome, man. I just want to get on one knee when you're around.
Yeah, okay.
Well, I'm the host, and Redbeard, my friend, partner, and producer, is the brains behind the scenes. And joining us on the set today are fellow voices. You know them all. Sloan, Jeremy, Pat, and Josh. Give a shout out, guys.
Hey guys.
Shout out.
Hey.
All right. Usually I do one of those openings, did you know? But, I don't feel like it today.
Okay.
I had my hands on a bunch of stuff that I thought, ooh, that's good. And then I thought, let's just jump into this because this show could go a little long because you got a lot, man. There's a lot in your lot.
Yeah, it could go a little long. I kind of showed up thinking that I'd try to keep it short and sweet. Well, we'll see. I mean, but I also sat there and realized that, especially with this crew here, that, other things may pop up, questions I hadn't thought about and didn't discuss, or just other ideas that, we can kind of jump right into whatever pops up.
Yeah.
As the spirit moves us. So
that's right. That's right, Brett. That's right. So audience out there, you've heard Brett before. One of our shows, he introduced me to Mark. That was the Quad Squad episode. What a great episode. And of course, you've been on plenty of other shows, as well as most of the folks in here. Jeremy from Team Jeremy is one of our hosts. So it's just, I'm really grateful that y'all took the time. It is 80 something degrees. Is it 80 degrees out? A month ago, we were in an ice storm. That's stupid, right? I'm fighting mosquitoes off this week, working on the yard. So thank you for coming out on such a beautiful day. I know a lot of the folks here were planning on going to Oak Lawn, and I don't know what's out there. They are running streakers or what. I don't know what they do at Oak Lawn, but glad you guys are here.
Well, they're mostly naked, but they're horses, so okay.
Okay.
No, we got some people within the group that might have a gambling problem. Actually, they don't have one, but we like to tease them they do.
Yeah.
It's one of those where it's another one of those we get together as a fellowship and run down there and have a really, really good day.
Yeah.
It's just a lot of fun. And, this may come across as, like a big red flag to some, but part of the reason I like going down there, it's the best deal you can get, because obviously at any kind of event like that, it can be expensive food and all that kind of stuff. A Virgin Bloody Mary is like the cheapest thing down there, and you get to hit the little Bloody Mary station, so you can load it up with pickles and
love it,
and and olives and celery and doctor it up, and I've been craving one. So
is that Virgin Bloody Mary? Is that the like V8 juice, that spicy V8 juice?
Yeah.
Oh, I would tear that up. It'd tear me up too at my age. But,
throw a little Worcestershire sauce in there.
Oh yeah.
All the other, like I said, all the other accoutrements, or however you say that.
Right.
And it's like the best deal down there. Yeah.
I love it too, and
I don't even know what that means, Brett. Can you spell it?
I remember the first time there was a big group of us, and there was people from other groups. When I walked back to our seats with this Virgin Mary, everybody's eyes just got big, and they were like, "What are you doing?"
Oh, were you the sober group?
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
And I was like, "No, it's a virgin, I swear." Yeah. So
that's the first time you're ever with a virgin, right?
Yeah, we had a good time.
Sorry, that was bad.
No comment at all.
Yeah, Mom, if you're listening, I digress. I'm sorry. We went there after old granddad last year, a bunch of us. And Sloan, you and I were hanging out together while the other guys were doing their thing. And we watched a guy drop like in half an hour, I don't know, $600 or $700 bills. He didn't win anything. He just, it's amazing how fast he can lose money. I didn't bet a dime. I just, free entertainment watching these guys. But wow, that one hit me. I was like, who can afford to do? Well, people can, obviously.
Right.
Wow. Yeah. So what else is going on in guys' life, man?
I was just going to joke about, I've brought this up before. You talk about the big words. I take that back to Mrs. Wheeler, I believe was her name. My senior year English teacher. I just think this book name is hilarious because we had it only instead of in 30 days, we did it through the whole semester, but it was called 30 Days to a More Powerful Vocabulary. So there you go. You can blame Mrs. Wheeler.
Wow, that is a big word. Isn't that the same word we use in the military for all those little things that go on our uniform?
What's that?
Accoutrements.
Oh, I have no idea.
Because when you said it, I was thinking condiments. I don't know.
What is the word you said?
I think it's French, and I don't know.
Accoutrements. Accoutrements. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds sexy, doesn't it? Yeah, anytime you get past two syllables, it's sexy.
Okay, because I had to look it up.
Okay.
Additional items of equipment, clothing, or accessories used for a specific activity or to define a particular status.
Okay.
All right.
So that would apply to yours, Bob.
Yeah.
It applies to my Bloody Mary because that was my lunch.
Hey, so Josh, how in the world did we get you out of the lease today down there where you're your deer stand is. I mean, you got Big Bertha out there waiting for you. What do you call that? Hogzilla?
Yeah, she's off having babies right now, so I'm just waiting on her to come back. I got a camera set up, so just waiting on her to come back. So
all right. Did I tell you what I have over here?
No, what's up?
I've got an empty freezer.
Yeah, oh yes, you did. Yeah, no, those pigs are smart. They don't want to be killed. So.
Well, the pictures that you showed of that one, what's that dress out like? 300 pounds?
Yeah.
Good night.
Hey, just a side note. It says the French word for condiment is lait condiment. So very fancy.
Yes. I like lait big
right. Right. Another big sexy word. You could just say the word. Most people don't know what it is, but you just say it, probably pick up a date. Lait condiment.
Probably, but then again, probably not. But
lait condiment.
Yeah, there you go.
Can you do that with that sexy voice of yours? No.
There's no sexy voice in this body.
He's just a sexy man. So what else is going on, guys? I haven't seen some of you in a few days.
Yeah, let's hear what's going on with Pat. Why do we want to pick on Pat? Pat's doing great.
Yeah?
Pat is great. If we could just get him to shut up every now and again.
Yeah.
Pick on you.
Well, you guys were talking about a 300-pound hog. Your name wasn't Lori, was it?
Oh!
Okay, I'm done.
Oh, man, no wonder why you're single. Oh, God.
Be real very quickly.
Yeah, cut that out, Redbeard.
Yeah, I was going to say.
No to Redbeard.
Edit. Well, you know the ladies have the mic here coming up soon, so they'll get you back. Wow. Jeremy, what's going on with you, brother? Anything exciting?
No. Nothing today. I'm going home. I'm going to pack up my camper, and I'm going camping next week. So that's really what's going on with me.
Good for you, man. Obviously goes out without saying you're taking Team Jeremy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. All right. So we got Danny in here. He's just chilled out. And, man, it's such a beautiful day out. I mean, too bad we couldn't set this equipment out there and catch the birds in the background, but we'll probably catch some other stuff too, like, I don't know, planes and stuff, so we'll stay in here. Brett, tell us where you're at today, man. Reader's Digest version. Give us a snapshot of who you are, and then we'll go backwards and come to the present day.
Okay. Well, I'm not a native to the area that we're in right now. I think probably everybody pretty much knows that we're in Arkansas. I got a job offer several years ago that I couldn't refuse, and that's what brought me down here. Kind of have a job that is a somewhat small niche, so you kind of got to take what you get and where it's at. And so been down here again for right at 5 years now, and knew that once I got in to the area, I needed to find a group to go hang out with and get to meetings and doing all that kind of stuff. And excuse me, found one here in North Little Rock at Sherwood, and most of or at least a couple of y'all in here are members of that group. And I'd say, for the first couple of years, I would participate, but, the meetings before the meeting and the meetings after the meeting, I was usually pretty much in, said what I had to say and kind of cut back out. And I think, I think there's actually several individuals sitting in here today that once they kind of came in and started hanging out a little bit more and I got to know them, and then kind of that whole, I'm sure you've talked about it before, the whole tribe thing got started and everything over the last at least 2 years. Mm-hmm. And some of it had to do with service work too. That was kind of what got me into getting to know these guys a little bit better, heading over to either rehab places or, the jail and things along those nature. And just all of them have become very good friends now, and I very much enjoy hanging out. And it's made, not sure I'm ready to call this place home per se. We'll talk about that a little bit as we move forward, I'm sure, but it sure has made it a lot more enjoyable.
Yeah.
And rewarding to be here. Not to over on buzzwords or anything like that, but it's really true. I'm speaking from the heart. There's some great guys sitting in here, and there's some others that couldn't make it today, and I really, really do appreciate them letting me into kind of their world.
Well, it's kind of funny you should say that, because I remember we bounced into each other at some other groups, but I think we started connecting after we went together to a rehab to speak. Mm-hmm. And then after that, we just kind of started talking more. And, as far as this, the group that, we fondly call the tribe, but I have to reiterate, this came from page 336 in the big book. We didn't make it up. We just adopted that name. But somehow we just grew together and, just started doing events or whatever. And then we started the group, was it a group text chat? And I think there's like 15, 20 guys on there or whatever. And so it's just, and then just when we started the podcast, the idea was there, and just guys started getting together and just goofing off. And a lot of those early shows, we call them the lost tapes, because when we transferred equipment, it's on me. I don't know what happened to it, but I wish that we still had some of that snarky stuff we did at your house, Sloan. That was fun. Yeah. But anyway, that's neither here or there, but you were part of all that. So cool.
Yeah. And it's like, just like you said, kind of circle around. That's, you brought up the Oaklawn deal, that's who was going. A bunch of us in the group that like to run down there and watch the horses, 2 or 3 times a season. And, the road trip, the food, horses, making fun of each other on who won something and who lost their shorts and who broke even and the whole 9 yards. So, it's just, it's a good time.
And the other thing that, and I don't know which one of you guys started at Springtime in the Ozarks. Somebody got the idea, hey, let's just do a group thing. We rented the house out there a few years now. And that turned into a big bonding session. And now it's like an annual thing. In fact, Tony just set us up for the next one here. It's April, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So anyway, just to having the guys together to edify each other, and we can see if that comes up on the show. But when and you mentioned earlier, go do my business at the, make an appearance at a meeting, get my fill of literature, other good words that people say, and then bounce out, and just go my own way. It wasn't really until, we started doing these other things that I really started feeling an affinity for sobriety instead of just, staying sober. I don't know how to put that in better words. If somebody can jump in, that'd be fine with me.
No, I think I know what you mean. I mean, we know what we got to do. And, I had some days under my belt when I moved here. So I knew, if I wanted to stay sober, I was going to have to find a meeting. I was going to have to find somebody to, I wasn't necessarily looking for a sponsor, just somebody that I'd be able to kind of, bounce things off of here and there. And, he took it that I wanted a sponsor, so I got a sponsor. So that actually worked out well, and I'm glad it did. And it was exactly happened the way it was supposed to happen. And and we've done some additional work together that I'd never done with any other prior sponsor. But to your point, I'm kind of rambling, but I knew I don't want to say it was completely the bare minimum, but it did. It started with the Soberfest and the golf.
Oh, that's right.
And so I hadn't been, at that group very long when the announcement was made about the golf tournament. And, saying I play golf is definitely stretching the definition of the word play. But the point was I still enjoy it and I like going out there. And here was an opportunity to be able to do that for a good cause and be around other people in sobriety. So that got me out of my shell a little bit, at least in terms of that, and met some great people out there. And some of them have, I met them before they actually kind of came into, somewhat like the tribe. So, that was good. But yeah, and again, it will, I think, probably come out in the show. I mean, we just start right now. And the fact that I've more or less been on my own, let's see now, what is it? 14 years So I can get inside my shell in terms of being, I'd like to think that I'm friendly and approachable, and I'll shake your hand and I'll say, how you doing? And maybe shoot the breeze for a minute or two, but I don't open up. I didn't open up real, easily when I first got here, and probably still don't. There's a little bit of I'm just used to myself type deal. But now with, that's another one of the things that I thank the tribe for is they've gotten me out of that shell. They get me to do things, even some of the fun things. I can sit there and say, nah, I can be lazy and just want to hang out. Even like this afternoon, one of those deals where I committed to doing this, let's go do it. And, I could probably think if push came to shove, I could probably sit there and say, yeah, Bob, I'd just as soon be laying on my couch right now. Yeah. Nobody necessarily likes talking about themselves. So, but to your point, again, kind of rambling, that I was doing, again, a little over the bare minimum. But as we progressed into doing these things outside, the rehab centers, the golf, the movies, the Oak Lawn, and the springtime in the Ozarks, I sit there and kind of laugh at last couple years that I've gone. It's more like a camping trip where a conference broke out, type deal.
Right. Didn't you run the kitchen you ran the kitchen for us at the house last time, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yes, you did.
Kinda.
Yeah. Because Tony ghosted us.
Yeah.
Nah, he had a business trip.
He did.
In fact, you worked the kitchen at Soberfest too.
Yeah, both of those were voluntold type scenarios.
Well, if you're good at it, brother. I
was actually very happy to do it and be able to do it. And let's not forget Pat. Pat helped me last year, and making fun of Tony, he helped the year before. So at the Soberfest anyway, that's a lot of food to cook.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
I've only ever been able to do the prep because I've always had a conflict. By the way, shameless plug, it's in June this year in Cabot at the VFW, June some date. I'll put it out in the show notes. I don't know what day it is, but I'll get it out there. I've been giving shameless plugs. I started doing this, to opportunities for people to get engaged in other, sober activities. So if you guys hear of anything, just email them to me or something so we can plug them in.
You've got the director of Soberfest sitting right here. He can get you all.
Oh, yeah. Actually, he sent me the flyer so I could put it out on the last show. Yeah. Let's not ever miss an opportunity to get somebody out there. Some of these events, you see these new guys show up to them. I don't golf at all, but I've heard y'all's stories about inviting somebody out to golf. And then they were like, well, this is cool hanging out with sober people. It's not a drag, and I heard y'all have a lot of fun out there. So I don't know. I might show up sometime, drive a what do you call those? A golf cart?
Beverage cart.
What is it?
The beverage cart.
Beverage cart. Amen. Yeah. I wouldn't mind doing that, but I've got no dexterity, brother.
That's all right. You just got to wear the tube top.
Yeah, that'll go over like a pregnant high jumper. Come on, Danny. Danny, you gonna go, bud?
Better you than me. I'd look like an egg with a rubber band wrapped around it.
Oh, the visual, man. Okay. All right.
Anywho.
So you're wearing a Kansas, what is that, Jayhawk?
Yes.
Tell us about that.
So we'll just jive in, I guess. My parents are both from Lawrence, Kansas, which gets described as a college town with a basketball problem.
Yeah.
And that's actually, they went to Lawrence High School. Both their parents grew up there and the whole 9 yards. They got married, and Dad actually decided to drop out of college. He'd had about a semester, and I think he was in his second semester, and enlist in the Marine Corps. And after his boot camp and everything, he got stationed in Fort Worth. And shortly after they got down to Texas, Brett showed up. And then I was like a harbinger of doom, apparently, because after I showed up, about 30 days later, he got his orders to go to Vietnam.
Oh.
So Mom packed me up and took me back to Lawrence. So I kind of look at a combination of Lawrence and the Kansas City area as kind of my hometown type deal. Because grew up in Lawrence until right before the 7th grade. And then we moved to a small suburb outside of Kansas City. It was only like 25 miles away, but it might as well at that age, being like 11 years old, because I've got a late summer birthday or midsummer birthday. So I'm always the youngest one in my class usually. But, and I have a father had a father, but he was one that never, ever, this is where it comes from, Pat, was never, ever on time. So my first week of junior high as a new kid, not knowing anybody in a new town, having to show up late, get the little, slip and go to my homeroom, 15, 20 minutes after after the classes had started.
Your dad was military and never on time?
No.
Oh, was it Air Force?
No, Marine.
Oh, Marine?
Yeah.
That doesn't go over well with Marines. That's an anomaly. Okay.
Well, I think when he came back, it was one of those where, I don't know, it was just Dad.
Yeah, well, shout out to Dad and his mad respect for his Vietnam service, man.
Well, I will pass that along to my mother. Yeah. He passed away a couple of years ago, but it's kind of interesting. And I mean, this may come up a little bit later, but I'm just going to go ahead and throw it out now. I mean, first and foremost, even before I get to that, I had a very, good childhood growing up. My parents stayed married until my dad passed away. Not to say that there weren't trials and tribulations within the marriage. My father had been an only child, had been kind of disowned by his father, and for as far as he concerned, his stepdad ended up being kind of who he looked towards as his father.
I can identify.
And that was one of the reasons why he dropped out of college and joined the Marine Corps, was to try to, I think in his mind, prove or get some, validation from my granddad, who was a World War II vet.
Oh,
deal.
Wow. Okay.
So, and I think really the only regret that I ever heard my dad talk about with the Marine Corps was that he didn't stay in the reserves. He knew he wanted to get out. He didn't want to make it a full time, but I do think that at some point in his life, he looked back and said, I should have stayed in the reserves. I should have done that. But outside of that, he was very proud, very, very proud of his Marine Corps days and being in the service. And, he was kind of one of those that for me was a little bit larger than life in a lot of cases. That's not to say that, I didn't have, especially, when I first got sober and was kind of going through my 4th step, some of the things that kind of boiled up was the fact that, again, and I don't, in no way, shape, or form is this any kind of a blame game. It's just the way my dad was. Mm-hmm. But he was kind of selfish. And Mom and I have had, a number of discussions around that. And it just was. It's like, he taught me how to throw a baseball, but he never taught me the rules of the game. I had to learn those on my own. And I kind of look like an idiot because I didn't actually know how to play the game. I could hit a ball, I could, throw and catch a ball, but I didn't know, how many strikes. Yeah, it was just kind of crazy. So there was a lot of stuff like that. And I even approached him on that at one point. And, his response was kind of just, well, you learned it. So,
okay.
That was just kind of the way he looked at it. He was kind of not everything was a sink or swim, type event for him, but he just kind of had a different way of looking at things sometimes. And I know that if he looked, if he was comparing to his own life, that's how he grew up. He had to do everything on his own because, so, it's one of those where I've gotten past it but it did kind of come out when I was going through my 4th step that it would have been nice to, and I certainly looked at, raising my kids in a manner of, if I can keep you from trying to make the same mistakes I made, isn't that kind of the point?
Yeah. But we teach them other mistakes. I mean, we mess up our kids with the greatest of intentions.
Sure. And we could spend a whole,
right.
I could spend a whole podcast talking about that, just within my own group. But so anyway, lived in Lawrence, and it was kind of one of those things where when we moved, to the suburbs of Canada. And it was a town of Olathe.
Oh, yeah.
That's where Mark lives now today. But, it was one of those where self-conscious and I wasn't really let's face it, everybody, when they grew up knew of, was at least a part of some kind of group, whether you call it a clique or whatever. I wasn't part of the real popular clique in Lawrence, but I kind of had a clean slate when I moved to Olathe. And just by default, it wasn't anything that I did. I just happened to be at the right place at the right time, got kind of put into a position where all of a sudden I've got the ability to be able to kind of change who I was in Lawrence and be more of somebody that had, maybe more friends, more people knew me, this, that, and the other. And so my point on all that is that it actually worked out for the best for me. It was probably one of the best things that could have happened because, it kind of got me out of my shell, forced me to have to do some things. And then again, because I got lucky and was at the right place at the right time, put me in with other people that were kind of considered the leaders of the school, so to speak. We're talking 11, 12, 13, 14-year-olds, but still, all that kind of stuff is important to you when you're at that age. And
were you a sports fan? You mentioned like baseball, right? So I'm thinking back in the days of Bo Jackson, George Brett, Freddie Patek.
Mm-hmm.
Were you a follower then?
No, I hate baseball. No, I don't.
That breaks my heart. It's my favorite sport.
I think what was kind of funny about it was I played baseball until I think like the third grade, and
that's T-ball, isn't it?
I know. It was literally like 1 year above or 1 year past. Go ahead.
You just talked about playing baseball and figuring it out and you hate it. But you also just said that you were part of the socias and you weren't a greaser and all the socias are all the athletes.
That's right.
So how can you not like baseball?
Because
right.
What we ended up finding out was that Brett was extremely nearsighted. And he was having a very difficult time as he got further along. When the ball was sitting on a tee, no problem. Somebody was throwing it at me, we had a little bit of an issue.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So, no, it was one of those where I probably actually would have, if we'd have figured that out a little sooner, that I needed glasses, I may have stuck with it. But what I did do is, this was the year before we moved, I got talked into going out for the little Pee Wee football team.
Pee Wee football. It's cute.
Man, we had
the pads weigh more than the kids.
We had an ex-NFL player as our coach.
Really?
Yep.
Who was that?
Probably ought to keep it. We'll keep it in. He wasn't one of us, but we'll just keep it in.
Yeah, probably. I think it's not LT, is it? No. That's a good. Let's move along. Sorry. I don't put you on the spot.
At any rate, we actually had a pretty good team. We won the Toy Bowl that year.
Is that what it was called? The Toy Bowl?
You had to bring a toy to get into the game.
Oh, as a father, I say that's cute, but I don't know. It just sounds. It's cute. It's cute. I'll leave it at that.
So we moved to Olathe, and there wasn't a football team. You had to go out for like a club team type deal if you wanted to play in seventh grade. And we got there too late for me to get involved with the football team. But then in eighth grade, I was able to go out for the eighth grade squad. And that's where, again, kind of back to your point, I made the football team. I actually, at that age, did very well playing football. Same thing in ninth grade. And even to an extent in high school. I know it's hard to imagine now, but I actually was relatively quick and a lot lighter back then, and I carried the ball.
You and me both, buddy.
Yeah, I know. Not as good as MF, and everybody knows who I'm talking about, but I
was he a baller?
He is if you listen to him.
I just see him as that with that Mr. T starter kid. I just thought he was a fan. I didn't know he actually played.
I have no idea. I just take him at face value that he's done it all and was one of the best that ever did it.
Well, we could talk smack about him. He didn't show up today.
Yeah, exactly. No. So kind of getting back to, because this is where my story really starts from an alcohol standpoint.
Okay.
Right before I started, and let me take a quick step back because I know different places do different things. So I was in a junior high, 7th and 8th and 9th grade, and then you go to high school, which was, sophomore, junior, senior. Right before I started my freshman year in junior high, they had built a new high school and a new junior high. So our class split. So whereas in 8th grade, you're bumping shoulders trying to get to classes, in 9th grade, all of a sudden it's like, hello, is anybody here type deal. I mean, but it was cool because we all got to be really, really close. And those of us that were still in that particular junior high were such that, we can talk about it later. But I honestly do believe that one of the driving factors of why I drank like I drank, especially in junior high, high school, is because we thought we were more mature than we really were.
Were you an outgoing guy? Extrovert type?
Once I got to know you, type deal. It's kind of like I was talking earlier, even here. I mean, I'd like to think I'm pretty, easygoing, easy to approach and all that kind of stuff, but I got to be comfortable first.
Well, when we talk about being a kid, you get a little bit of liquid courage in you. You come out of the closet type of thing. What were you like?
No, it wasn't like that at all. You hear a lot of people sit there and talk about how they were overly self-conscious or didn't fit in and this, that, and the other. No, I fit in great. What I found, and again, it was only a couple months after my 14th birthday. There was a keg party. So I'm a freshman in junior high. So we're the top dogs though too. Even though we're only 14 in the junior high, we're the top dogs. Keg party, go out there with a buddy of mine because his older brother was there, and he was actually like working one of the kegs, but there was a girl that he wanted to go chase, so he put Brian and I in charge of this keg, and we were literally like filling each other's up, downing it, filling another one up. And what I found was I really, really, really liked getting drunk. I just liked getting drunk. And it was one of those and I'd had liquor before, but never to this extreme. I mean, where we drank that much and got sick. And again, I've talked about this before, but I don't remember the day after whether I had a hangover or anything like that. But what I do remember was I couldn't wait to do that again. And that's basically what we did.
When you say Brian, is this Mark's brother?
No, this was another friend of mine.
Okay, go ahead.
Just another friend. But yeah, his brother's name's Mike, and Mike comes into the picture shortly thereafter. Mike had gone to a different school, and it was a private school, and it was done in 8th grade. So I didn't know Mike until we started our freshman year, and then he and I, along with others, knew him because he did play baseball and stuff like that on other teams. But since I was new to the area, I didn't know him. But he and I hit it off, right off the bat. And he's still my best friend from back home. And, but yeah, he's from a big Irish Catholic family, and he was number 5 out of 7 kids.
Gee, money. Brett, you might have said this and I missed it. Apologies. How many siblings do you have?
I have a younger sister.
You have a younger sister. Okay.
And quite a bit younger, as per my parents' design, apparently.
Okay.
There's almost 8 years between my sister and I.
Okay.
So.
Why did they wait? So you say that like there was an actual reason why.
They kind of wanted to spoil me and figured by the time I hit, around that, that time period of being 7, 8 years old, I'd start getting into different things. And there were other things that I did, outside. I mean, it wasn't just baseball, but if anything else, just not wanting to be in the house anymore, and I'm one of those, you hear about it all the time, but I was one of those Gen X kids that in the summertime, man, I busted out of the door, came back for lunch, busted out after lunch. And it was one of those where I just needed to be home before the sun went down. And my parents had no idea where we were at or what we were doing. And this was in a college town, and we spent an awful lot of time actually on the University of Kansas campus, running around. I mean, as long as that's out of the bag, there were a bunch of us. We used to go down and sneak into Allen Fieldhouse and go play basketball in there, or they had an indoor track in there. We'd pull the mats and everything out, and they had little mini tramps and everything. We'd get up on the upper deck and jump off onto the mats. And I mean, we just tear that place up, tear it up, but just
have fun.
Oh my God.
Just kids.
Just kids. And I mean,
those are the good days.
As far as we were concerned, that campus was there for our entertainment.
That's right. So you go home and pheasant hunt. Did you pheasant hunt as a kid?
No. You're jumping ahead of my story a little bit. But
Sorry. I was just thinking, as a kid, did you hunt?
No. And we can segue into that because Dad was a big time hunter when he was a kid. Now it was all small game. And my dad grew up in a pretty rough family in terms of financials. They didn't have a whole lot of money, put it that way. And it wasn't like they were dirt poor, but when he had his best friend, they'd go out and squirrel and rabbit hunt. And my grandmother used to cook that stuff up all the time just to supplement what they would have.
Oh, wow.
When he got back from Vietnam, he was not into hunting anymore. And, now, it wasn't that he wasn't into guns, and he was very active and interested when I started getting into it. I didn't get into it until I got into college and met my other best friend who was from north central Kansas, and he started taking us back, started out pheasant hunting, and then eventually, after we got out of college and whatnot, got into deer hunting and stuff like that. But yeah, I learned all that from a buddy of mine in college. So, but yeah, when we were back in ninth grade, it was, and I usually, when I'm doing the kind of annotated version of my story, I'd spent the better part of 30 years as a binge drinker. That's what I did. And
30 years, you made it that long?
Yeah. As a binge drinker. Excuse me.
Oh, yeah. Not a daily.
I want to ask a question. I
Sure.
want to go back for a second.
Sure.
Because I can relate to what you just said about your dad. Whenever I went to Iraq, I was a huge hunter. When I came back there was like a 5 or 6 year span that I didn't hunt at all.
Right.
But so what did you see the effects of what Vietnam had done in your dad whenever, obviously you were born when he went to Vietnam.
Yeah. But I was like almost a year old when he got back. And it was one of those where apparently it took about a month before I'd warm up to him. I didn't want to have anything to do with him. So that, that had an impact on him too. But to your point, and this is actually part of my story. I got an awful lot of what I probably have heard more about what my dad went through in Vietnam than anybody else in the family. And it was usually after he had about half a bottle of scotch in him. And that was kind of one of the things. So as a teenager, while we were going out on the weekends binge drinking, I'd come home and I may be, not completely wrecked, but I'd be feeling pretty good. And he'd be every bit as tight as I was, if not more sometimes. So my dad was one of those that, they say you talk in the big book and he had the willpower. When things started getting uncontrollable in the family, he could basically stop and pull it back. But then every once in a while, he'd kind of start going down that road again. Things would start getting, life was becoming unmanageable, and he'd stop again. He just could. I couldn't, one of those type of deals. But yeah, we had a number of late night discussions. And, his comment about, because I remember even in college saying, you used to love hunting and all that kind of stuff. Why, what happened when when I was growing up? And he flat out said, he's like, well, after you've killed somebody, it's just not the same. It's just not the same thing. And I got it. But like I said, and he ended up getting into sporting clays with the same buddy that he used to go out and hunt squirrels and rabbits with. And then, whenever I'd be in town, because by that point, I mean, we're all over the place, but still in Kansas, but was down in Wichita. But I'd come up to Kansas City and we'd love going out and doing sporting clays. And, you know, and he was good at it. And he had a lot of, you know, he very much enjoyed, especially, you know, having his son with him to go out there. And I'd take some of my other buddies would go with us. And there'd be 4, 5, 6 of us, and we'd go do sporting clays.
What is that? Where you shoot skeet and stuff?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, I wanted to ask you, and I mean, I'm not trying to derail us here, but, you know, one of my heroes, Vietnam vet, Marine, Carlos Hathcock Jr. Did your dad ever talk about him?
He
White
found his
Feather.
book.
What?
White Feather?
White Feather, yeah.
Yes.
Roger that.
He found his book. My parents are both extremely big reader, or what Dad was, but Mom still is. Both of them used to love reading a lot.
Yeah.
And Dad found his
93 confirmed kills.
It wasn't an autobiography. It was just a biography. And it's called Marine Sniper. If you haven't read it, and it's not a very thick book, but he read it and highly recommended it to me. So I read it.
Yeah.
And
what'd you think about it?
oh, it was the most amazing, just absolutely phenomenal.
What stood out to you about Gunny Hathcock?
Oh, that guy was just fearless.
Yeah.
Absolutely fearless. I mean, you know, there's at least 4 or 5 significant events that he did, you know, either with his spotter, usually with his spotter.
Right.
He did have that one deal where he was solo, where he had to crawl through 800 or crawl through that.
Take out
grass.
the general.
And with an 800-yard shot.
Isn't that crazy?
You know, and it took him 3 days to get there.
The facing off the 2-step snake.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the whole 9 yards. So, you know, and he's from Arkansas.
That's right. Yeah. Well, that's what made me think of it. Not just the Marine story, but when you said that he would catch small game and grandma would cook it up. Yeah. That's how Carlos was raised, doing the same thing. And I don't, again, not trying to go too far off the reservation, but what stood out to me about that particular individual, yes, the stories were amazing, but when he started the sniper program and he was interviewing guys that were marksmen, why do you want to be on the sniper team? And if they said something like, "Oh, I want to kill gooks," he was like, "Hey, you need to find another position." But if he found somebody who said, "I want to save Americans," I mean, just this guy's American spirit was just spot on, man. Anyway, so one of my heroes, I have his book, and I tried to get it autographed because he would come here to Arkansas every year for the MTU. Oh, I can't think of the name. It's marksman. Golly, I forgot the name. I feel so bad. So he would come here every year for that. So I happened to be here at just before he was coming. He had just passed away, and I had his book, man. I was so excited. But anyway, I digressed. I admit it. Go ahead, Brett.
No, I mean, it was phenomenal. And my dad had stories of things that he did when he was over there that, you know, I'm not necessarily putting him in the same league as Carlos Hathcock, but holy cow, it was like, what? You know, you did what? And, you know, he did, you know, I don't know if this is, I'll just say it. I mean, he did like 30 missions into Laos.
Wow.
You know, so if you guys know of anything and that needs to be edited out, let me know. But
no.
The point being, they took his dog tags, they gave him, you know, foreign weapons, and they stuck him on a chopper that didn't have any markings on it, and they would take platoons into Laos. And he was a gunner on a CH-46. That's what he did.
Wow.
And
life expectancy is like 60 seconds.
Yeah. And they'd take him in and drop him off, and then go pick him up a couple days later. And that's what he did. And he did and they were all voluntary missions, but he did it according to what he told me is if I didn't do it, somebody else was going to. So
that is the common answer I hear among men that I just absolutely admire.
So that's what I mean. You know, and I'd hear these stories and you know, by that time I was still already in the process of, you know, we looked at it like every weekend. The point was to drink. That was what the weekends were for.
Right.
And again, I go back to we you saw it on TV, you saw it in the movies, you saw it all over the place, that's what, that's how you go have a good time. And we just considered it didn't matter that we were underage. We wanted to have a good time, and that's how you did it. So that's what we did. And we'd get a hold of whatever alcohol we could get a hold of.
3-2 beer.
Yeah.
Do they even make that anymore? Oh, it's called O'Doul's.
Anywho, we'd sit back behind the pizza place, and just drink. Go in, eat a pizza or eat a slice of pizza, go back outside, drink some more, come back in. I mean, how we got away with it was just because of the times, so to speak, And there were other things that, that year I got into as well. I mean, it was the first time that I'd gotten, offered to smoke some pot, and same thing. It's like, well, this is what the big kids do. So why wouldn't I want to do it type deal? And as I progressed through, not so much junior high was mostly just booze and pot. Then I got into high school and other things became available like speed and cocaine and shrooms and acid. I'd try it all. I mean, if somebody offered it, then it was like, hell, this is like a party accoutrement. Absolutely. Let's do it.
It's funny you should say that because in all the time I've known you, which is 5 years, I just don't see you as anything else other than what you say as a beer drinker. I could see that. I don't see you going down, the rabbit trails of other illicits. You just don't strike me as that type of guy.
Well, no, I did. And like I said, if it was...
Sloan does, but you don't.
Yeah. It was just one of those, like, I kid you not. It was like if somebody had it or, part of it, I was easily... I don't know if impressionable is the right word. It would just, if somebody said, man, I dropped some acid last week and it was awesome. Like, well, I want to try dropping acid. I mean,
absolutely.
It's like, why wouldn't I? And
that's funny.
The thing of it is, like, crack was on the scene back then, but I kind of took Eddie Murphy's approach to that in terms of why would I want to do any drug that was named after part of your butt, If meth was around back then, which it probably was, but I'd never heard of it. I was well through college and married before I'd ever heard of meth. And I didn't want, not that I have an aversion to needles, but to me, that was too far. That was across the line that I wasn't going to cross.
Hey, I wanted to ask you because I was let me tell you this part, and then I'm going to ask you to help me out with this. I was in a Starsky and Hutch car, literally. It was like the Starsky and Hutch car with a bunch of guys. I was a passenger. They had all dropped acid, but same with needles, man. That was a bridge too far for me, man. I was an alcoholic. But these guys when we turned this corner, I don't know where we were going, but they turned the corner. They're all screaming. We're still now we're going down the street. They're still screaming because the back end of the car hadn't turned yet. They all had the same trip. What, did you ever have
Mine were not that crazy. The first time I tried it, I didn't really feel anything until about 1:30 in the morning, and all of a sudden I just woke up, and was like, whoa, what's going on? I think I only did it twice. The second time, in terms of acid, did shrooms a couple times too. Shrooms I had a bad trip on, but not that I was seeing, crazy monsters or anything like that. We did them and it was for a bachelor party. Same guys, that I partied with all through junior high and high school. And we went to the dog track, and there was something about all that noise and all that fluorescent lights. It just absolutely freaked me out. And, I guess I'm busting his anonymity, but somebody's brother that was the one that he had more experience, and he's like, dude, you're having a bad trip. Let's just go outside. It was like February. So we go outside. I mean, and it's like 4 40 below or 40 degrees outside, not 40 below, but 40 degrees out. It was cold. Nobody else is outside. As soon as I walked outside, man, it was like somebody pulled a veil over my, I was like, oh, this is awesome. Yeah. So he sat there shivering with me for probably no more than 3 or 5 minutes, but he's like, dude, I'm going back in. I'm like, I'm just going to sit here for a little bit. And it's all those windows behind, you know, so people are like, who is that nut job out there sitting outside by himself? It's like, well, that's Brett. He's having a bad trip on shrooms. So,
oh man, dude, I was on a military maneuver, early 80s, and I was sitting next to a guy nicknamed Animal, and he had a reason for that, but that's not part of the story. I was starving. I had just got there. I hadn't had a chance to eat. So we're cruising down the road and he's sitting next to me. He goes, hey man, you want some shrooms? And I was like, hell yeah. So, I mean, I ate the whole bag. And then it was like a Cheech and Chong story, man. He goes, hey man, where's my shrooms? I said, I ate them. He's like, whoa. Yeah, man. Another dude had a coal line bag. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? They're waterproof. Keep your sleeping bag in. It keeps it dry. Dude had little Mickey Big Mouths and ice full in, and it was the closest thing to me, man. I ralphed in that bag bad. Yeah, I lost a lot of friends on that maneuver. So sorry, man. Memory.
Yeah. I understand.
First and only time I ever did shrooms, by the way. So
that much, Bob.
Yeah. Be like the guy from Super Troopers. I'm going to need $100 for that bag that you just ate. Sorry, that's a plug. I love that movie. I absolutely love that movie.
Anyway. You recommended it, and we still haven't seen it yet, so don't hold it against me. I'm going to watch it.
So I don't know where we were at. You asked about, and the other time I took acid, it was one of those where I could understand why they were taking it so much in the 60s and 70s because I just felt good all night. Lights and everything had a little bit of a shimmer and everything to it, but I didn't hallucinate, I guess was probably the easiest thing, but I just felt good all night. I was like, wow, man, I can see why somebody would get into this, you know. Because I kind of always wondered, I mean, and I'm sure it's like anything else, it's the dose, but it's like, how do you take someone like Jimi Hendrix that can go out and just rip it if they're freaking out, you know? So there had to have been kind of or you just got more acclimated to it or something. I don't know, but it's just like, wow, I did. It felt good. So getting back to it, the one thing that did start occurring during this period of time, though, was when we would, and again, alcohol is alcohol. You know, we may have had a preference of what we wanted, but you took whatever you could get.
Yeah.
And I had gotten sick so many times off hard liquor that I got to the point where all I was going to do was drink beer. So that's important because that ended up being my, you know, that was my main drink from the time I got out of, you know, actually even before I got out of high school, all the way through before I crossed over to the other side. And the problem was, well, I mean, not to jump 20 years real fast. So got out of college, got married. Excuse you.
Danny's excited, right?
I actually had periods where, you know, I behaved like a normal drinker. I could go buy a 12-pack of beer and it'd last 2 or 3 weeks. You know, I just have a couple after mowing the yard. And part of that was the fact that married, have a kid, you know, I joke about it, but it's absolutely true. I remember, so the ex and I had a deal where, you know, when our first, well, we did it for both of them, but, you know, on weekends, one of us would get up on Saturday and one of us would get up on Sunday. So the other one had an opportunity to sleep in. Well, my morning was Saturday and I had ripped it up Friday night, big time. And I am dying Saturday morning. And I got this kid screaming with a crappy diaper and all that. And I'm like, man, as bad as I thought this hangover was, it just got worse. And so it was one of those where, you know, the alcoholic in me, the bright idea was like, okay, Friday nights, we got to take it easy. Saturday, we can go crazy, but Friday nights, we got to take it easy. The other thing that kind of happened a little bit, and I mean, this was still, if you go back to, you know, like the teenage years and high school years, not that I didn't get, you know, I mean, I wasn't a blackout drinker. I wasn't a pass out drinker or anything like that. We'd get pretty lit. But again, you know, we're underage, so there were limits sometimes on how much booze we could have. And there were other times when, for whatever reason, I can't explain it, I just, you know, I was drinking that night, but I didn't hit it hard and I didn't get, you know, totally messed up or anything. Well, after getting married and having kids, and like I said, there were periods where I could, for all intents and purposes, I was like a normal drinker. Go out to eat, have a single cocktail, call her good, nothing else. But every 3 or 4 months, sometimes I knew they'd happen, sometimes they wouldn't. You know, I ended up calling my Howl at the Moon events, and they were, you know, pop one open. Sometimes it just went down so smooth that the rest of the night I knew it was going to be one of those nights. Sometimes I had to choke down a couple, but then the next thing I know, I'm on like number 8, number 9, number 10, and there's not enough. I want to keep going until they basically were either out of booze or they kick us out of the bar.
What happens when you have a Howl at the Moon event?
Yeah, that's just it. It's full on. There's not going to be, when I get drunk on those Howl at the Moon event, or when I'd get drunk at those Howl at the Moon events, I wasn't drunk enough. Now it became how drunk can I get? You know, and they'd be like, they'd do last call and I could barely stand up, and I'm like, give me a double and give me 2 of them. You know, it was like, how can the whole, you know, one's too many, 1,000's not enough type deal. That's exactly what those nights were like. And
but those were good times, right?
No, they, for the most, yeah, they were. And
so do you have a hold my beer moment? You know, hold my beer memories that were just fun? I don't know. I'm just curious.
You know, yeah, I'm sure that there was a whole bunch of them, but, you know, to be perfectly honest, the ones where we got to laughing the most was usually when we were high.
Oh,
yeah. And I mean, you know, I'd be scared to death to smoke today because the stuff is so much stronger than it was, you know, back in the 80s when. That's
what I hear.
Yeah. Well, I got friends that still do it, and even they're like, oh my God, man, you got to be careful with this stuff.
Pot always made me, you know, well, first of all, the smell makes me sick, but just, when I did do it, first thing that I remember was I ate everything. If you wanted to get rid of your leftovers, I was the guy to call. And then after that, I would just go right to sleep. You know, but then, but I'd get sick. Maybe it's because of everything I ate. I don't know.
You were eating too much sugar, Bob.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I did some damage to some Oreos, man.
Listen, I know you're hungry, but you can't eat. You're going to mess up your high, man.
Oh, that's what it was. Okay.
Well, this friend of mine who has a brother that you know lived out in the country. And there was the 2 of us and 2 other buddies, and we'd been drinking. I mean, almost every time we ever smoked a joint, we had beer with us. I guarantee it. And we'd been out drinking, and it was usually, I mean, this was kind of back in a period of time too when, you know, people were either more likely to share or it was really cheap. Either one, because we didn't have a whole lot of money, but more often than not, it would be somebody's like, oh, you want to join here? You know, and just give you one. So his folks are out of town. It's just the 4 of us out on this, you know, this old farmhouse. It had a big deck on the outside. We smoked this joint. And before we got started, though, this buddy of mine he knew he was going to get hungry. He was already hungry because it's like 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning. So he'd put some eggs on to boil. He wanted to make some egg salad. And we're sitting out.
With beer.
Yeah. We're sitting out on this deck, and he had those kind of outside lawn chairs that spring to them. Okay. And you know how time gets real distorted when you're high?
Yes, it does.
Yeah, it does. We're all just sitting out there, kick back, grooving, you know, and all of a sudden it looked like somebody launched, you know, a catapult. And all I hear is, you know, fuck the eggs, boom, and Mike goes running inside. And so that immediately gets all of us to start laughing. So we all amble inside, and Gets the eggs off. He peels them and he puts them in this bowl and he gives them to one of the other buddies of mine. And now, so he gives them to Robbie. And Kelly and I are sitting on the end of the counter on bar stools talking. Robbie's telling some story, but Kelly and I both realize that he's got this fork in this bowl with these 4 freshly peeled boiled eggs, and he's trying to munch them up. And we all know how eggs are slimy. And so all they're doing is just moving around, right? So Kelly and I both notice it at the same time and start laughing. Well, Robbie thinks that we're laughing at his story, but he looks down and he sees these eggs still aren't busted up. So he starts doing it faster. And all he's doing is moving these eggs faster and faster. And I mean, Kelly and I literally almost fell off those bar stools. We're laughing so hard because he's almost kicking these eggs out of the bowl. He's trying to mash them up, but they will not cooperate. You know, it's just
Hey, I think maybe we could take a quick break, but when we come back, I maybe tell us about the when the juice turned on you and where you were in life at that time.
Gotcha.
All right, let's take a quick break.
Oh, wow.
Fun times.
I'm trying to mash up these.
All right, welcome back. So, God, I got a mouthful of Twizzlers here. Sorry, that's so rude. All right, so catching us up now. You did high school, college, and you got married. You had a couple of daughters. Mm-hmm. Okay, you got a couple. Now you got some grandkids.
I do.
All right. Let's not get too far ahead of myself. But when did the juice or the alcohol start turning on you, and the consequences of that?
So it's why I brought up the point earlier about how I got to the point where I couldn't hardly drink hard liquor anymore, and I just stuck with beer. So about 2000, I got to the point physically where when I'd have those Howl at the Moon nights, I could not drink as much beer physically as I felt like I needed to drink. And so without, literally having to choke a swallow down here and there and like, oh man, it's going to come back up if I try to take another sip. And I'm sitting there going, but I need to be more drunk. Right. So again, the genius alcoholic in me was like, well, maybe it's time to pull up your big boy pants and start drinking hard liquor again.
Well, that's the answer.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And that's exactly what I did. It took a little while to get into it, but and I figured kind of like I did a lot of things. It was like, well, if I'm going to do it, I'm going straight to whiskey. And
wow, that's a jump.
Yeah. Well, I did coffee the same way. I did wine the same way when there was a little period of time there where, the ex and I thought we'd try to be a little more, cultured and try to find some wine for when we had guests over and stuff like that. It didn't last very long, but same thing. It's like, might as well just go with the reds,
Now, is she an alcoholic also?
No, she can count on like 4 fingers how many times she's ever gotten so drunk that she got sick in her entire life. And I think I was there for 2 of them. So, she was one of those that could have, she liked margaritas, and she'd have them, especially if we went to a Mexican restaurant, she'd have a margarita and there'd be 2/3 of it, 1/3 of it left when we leave,
How do people do that?
That's a sin.
Yeah, it was. Real quick before we get into it, though, you asked about, kind of like the fun memories. So I just realized this, and, we'll go through this and then I'll jump back in where I was at. These guys that I ran around with all the time that we were doing all this, drinking on the weekends and everything with, we came up with what we called our beer etiquette rules. Exactly. And
there's such a thing?
Yes. Well, there was for the 4 of us. We were adamant on them. So it was like, and I don't remember the order. I just remember one of them was if you were pouring somebody a beer, especially out of like a keg or a tap, if it had more than 1/4 inch of foam on it, you kept that one and you did another one until there wasn't any foam on it.
Well, that's not a bad rule.
This was actually, I do remember what rule number 1 was. Rule number 1 was whoever was driving that night should never have to ask for a beer.
Oh, great rule.
I know. Yeah. It's one of those where, in today's society, drinking and driving is highly, highly frowned upon. But back then, we didn't. That's what you did. You drove around drinking.
Did any of you guys ever get Deweys?
Like I said, I had been given the sobriety test like 3 or 4 times before I finally got, and that was after I crossed over the threshold. But back in high school and college, nope. Not all of them I was totally lit, but there were a couple of them that, if they wanted to haul me in, they could have. And basically, they either made us throw the beer out, and in one case, I had to go park the car. That was one where I could barely walk, and they let me get back in the car and go park it, and then walk back to where I was going. So it was different times.
Yeah, way different times.
And the cop left, man. We should have. But so that was 2 of them, and I still do this one today. Whenever you get a can, I always crimp right underneath the mouth hole. So you would do that for the driver, so he didn't have to look down to figure out where the hole was on the top of the can. And I still do that to this day, because then I know which one's mine if there's a bunch of us drinking. I mean, even to this day, I just got into such a habit.
Just to clarify, a bunch of us drinking non-alcoholics drinks, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Dr. Pepper.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I wasn't following it
Good
first,
call
but
for you.
there was just several red cans of the 23 flavors floating around here right now. So.
That's right.
And there was another one in there, but I can't remember. But and we used to laugh about that all the time. One other quick one that we had is kind of like an unwritten. We smoked a lot of pot, but most of the people that we ran around with didn't. And we didn't want them to know that we did. So we would do 2 things whenever we'd go to a party. And again, we always had beer. So we'd only take in a couple beers apiece. 1, so we wouldn't have to share. And 2, if it was kind of a lame party, we'd either use that as an excuse, even though we got a cooler full of beer, we'd be like, oh man, we're out of beer. We got to go get beer. Or if one of us found somebody that wanted to get high, clandestine, they'd come up to the rest of us and like, oh man, we got to go scratch a lottery ticket. The numbers are up tonight. And we'd be like, oh, okay. And so we'd leave to go get a lottery ticket. And that was code word for, we found somebody that's got a joint. Let's go.
That's good.
Yeah. So anyway, back to the 2000s. So I started drinking whiskey, and it was one of those where it was a little bit of whiskey and a little bit, a lot of water, and then it was less water, and then it was less water, and then and I got to thinking. I went through where, I'm going to kind of compress the next 10 years down, because number one, I don't actually remember a whole lot of it, to be honest.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to.
I get that. I get that.
This, that, and the other. But I do remember that I went from buying 175 handles, and I can remember going out to throw one away one time, and trash pickup is once a week. And I open up the trash bin, and there's already an empty one in there, and I still got a couple days before trash day. And I'm thinking, Brett, maybe we're drinking a little too much whiskey, because I'm the only one drinking it. And I'm throwing another 175 in the trash. Then I switched over to, I got to the point where I switched over to buying 500 milliliters. So you would think, well, great, you lowered the amount. Well, I was drinking a 500 milliliter every night, at least one. And where I had gotten to was I would sit there and try to drink it within 15, 20 minutes again. I'd get it from the liquor store, take a big pull, go get my kid from daycare, drive home. She'd go start watching TV or whatever. I'd be out in the garage, and I would just be hammering. It didn't happen overnight, but I gradually got to that point where, and I liken it for anybody that's ever seen the movie, because this is what I was thinking. I remembered thinking this. The movie Trainspotting, which is about a bunch of Scottish heroin addicts. Yeah. But anytime you see, generally when they show somebody doing heroin, or if you've ever talked to somebody that's done it, or maybe you've done it, that immediate, as soon as you start pushing that plunger in for that needle, you're just immediately high.
Really?
And that's what I was going for with the booze. I wanted that
instant gratification.
Yeah, but it was more than just gratification. I wanted to go blackout. At this point now, I'm blacking out. I'm blacking out and I'm passing out.
Brett, do you have a relationship with your kids at all at this time, or what's that look like, if you don't mind me asking?
The oldest one knew something was up. The youngest one, I think, was young enough to not really. I mean, I think she probably, I'm not going to say she didn't know. I haven't fully talked to her about how much she remembers as a kid.
Yeah.
She was certainly old enough that once I finally crossed that, or did have my major flame out and hit rock bottom and didn't drink anymore, she understood the significance of that, but, there were other things that ended up happening that, still created a rift in my mind, especially with the youngest one. The older one, a little more mature, number one. Number two, went in the medical field, so had maybe a little more what I think. Well, I know that she had to go to like an AA meeting,
right?
As part of her curriculum.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's that 10-year span from 2000 to 2010 is where I jumped off into the deep end of whiskey. I mean, it took a year or two to get to where I was. But now I'm drinking every night. And like I said, and I finally got to the point where I was, drinking to basically pass out. And if I woke up before 10 o'clock, which was when the liquor store closed, I'd make an excuse to go out and get another bottle. And I wouldn't do the whole thing again, but I'd start hitting it again.
Wow, I can identify with that. Yeah.
And then, it got to the point. So then I get my first DUI. I get my second one like 90 days later.
They love that.
Yeah. So I put myself into a outpatient program. Great program. And it's where I met, one of the most awesome counselors that I've ever met. Just super, super great guy, and the kind of dude that you just look at and you're like, man, I want to hang out with that guy. Big time blues guitar player, was an ex Harley dude. But smart as a whip and extremely, extremely wise, And I can remember he looked at me the last night that I was in that IOP program. He's like, my biggest fear for you, Brett, is that you haven't had enough yet. And at that point, all I'd had was 2 DUIs. Still had my job, still married, the whole 9 yards. Well, after the IOP, we started getting some more yets. And, one of the things that I hadn't talked about, but obviously during that, or after I kind of crossed that threshold with the whiskey, I started getting the DTs. And at first I didn't know what they were. I called them my noodly legs because I felt like even if I knew I was walking a straight line, it felt like I was all over the place. I'd get the cold sweats.
Oh, man.
I couldn't sign my name, to where you'd be able to read it or anything. And it was like one Saturday morning, I'm shaking real bad, and I sneak off to the liquor store and grab a bottle and take a pull, and immediately they go away.
Yep.
And again, that alcoholic genius thinking, the light bulb goes off, and it's like, these are the DTs. Well, now I know how to fix that problem. I just got to get more booze.
Wow.
Get more in.
And so that carried me into the point where, and I had a type of job at that time to where I went to a lot of meetings. So a lot of people didn't know where I was anyway.
I'm sorry. This was after the IOP?
This was actually before.
Before. Okay, go ahead.
I kind of jumped back real quick to talk about the DTs. And so I'd sneak out. Liquor store opened at 9. And I'd go just grab a half pint because I knew if I grabbed anything bigger than that, then I'd be trying to sneak out to my vehicle. All I needed was just something to take the edge off. And then I'd have a little bit left over for when I went home before I got my next big, 500 milliliters. And that was one, I remember a night where I got into my truck. I knew I had, one swig left in that half pint. Black truck, sitting on asphalt. It was probably June or July. So it's at least 113 degrees inside that truck. And I kicked that thing back. And I mean, I think we all know whiskey generally burns anyway, but you kick it up to 113 degrees and it's got a little more oomph to it. And I literally started laughing hysterically, thinking, you're insane. You've gone absolutely insane, Brett. No normal person does what you just did. Nobody. And that was where a lot of where I was wanting to get that immediate blackout phase came from, was because the stuff that was going between my brain had me convinced not only that I was insane, but that I was just such a piece of crap. I was no good to nothing. And quite frankly, once I got to that point where, I mean, you do 500 milliliters, that's the equivalent of 8 to 11 shots, depending on the size of your shot glass, in 15 to 20, 25 minutes, always on an empty stomach.
Yeah.
And that was the only way I could get those voices in my head to shut up.
Yep.
And quite frankly, then I got to the point where I was like, I just hope I don't wake up. I was too chicken to, put a gun in my mouth or, tie a rope around my neck or something like that. But I was like, hopefully that was my prayer. God, make this be the bottle. I crack it open and start kicking it back.
Man, I'd just like to say I've been there too, Brett, and I wouldn't wish that on anybody. Yeah, that's a terrible way to be, man.
It is. And
I don't know how many times, we get into that 1-inch gunfight and just think, is this it? And I don't know how you pull out of it. I don't know if any of you people pull. We are miracles. Miracles.
So the drinking at work ended up catching up with me, and I ended up losing my job. So now I'm spending time with the absolute last person that I need to be alone with, which is me. And didn't realize this until I went to inpatient rehab. But so I was going through a deal.
How did they find out about the drinking? What happened?
Yeah. They were smelling it on me. They had known for a while, and I think they were just not quite sure what to do about it yet. And finally, we got into a position where we were actually having to lay some people off. And we had kind of gone through everybody that they could, and now they were getting ready to start doing the next level. And I gave them a prime excuse. And that's, not to say that I wouldn't have if they hadn't have caught me, but I'm pretty sure that the way I understood it, I gave them an out.
Yeah, it certainly didn't help your case.
No, it didn't. Where was I going? There was something
you were talking about inpatient.
Oh, so when I was sitting at home by myself, I'd do a bender, and then I'd sit there and tell myself, okay. And I'd literally gut it out for a day or two, going through all the DTs and everything, saying, see, I can do this. I can do this. I can quit drinking. And then, day 2 or day 3, I'd be like, okay, I got to go get. But I didn't find out until I got into rehab how dangerous that was.
Right.
They're like, you're lucky you either didn't put yourself in a coma or die. And, but yeah, Pat and I've talked about this. I mean, and the thing of it is, Jeremy, back to the original, I don't hate baseball. I enjoy watching it periodically. It's just not my favorite sport. But Pat and I were talking that when I was home after losing my job, going through this phase of drinking and then gutting it out for a couple of days, the College World Series was on. And it's only been over the last couple of years that I could get back and enjoy watching the College World Series, because it kind of took me back to that very, very dark time. And it doesn't have anything to do with the tournament. It just makes me think of, I remember you curled up in the fetal position on the couch, and that was the only thing on.
Oh, boy.
Type deal. Sitting there shivering and shaking and breaking out in cold sweats. So anyway, so then I had an event, or I say an event, went out, or I just got absolutely hammered, blackout drunk one night, or one afternoon, actually. And apparently my ex had taken the my youngest and one of her friends to the pool and found me passed out in the garage.
Oh.
And again, how I didn't like overheat or anything like that because it was summertime. But the next morning, I was actually supposed to get up and go fishing with a friend of mine. So I'm up getting ready to go fishing. And she comes out and basically says, that's it. You can't stay here any longer.
Oh.
So I was like, all right, I'm going to go fishing. And then when I come home, I'll pack up a little bag. And basically that's what I did. But as soon as I left the house, the next place I went was a liquor store. I never made it out of town. And I think so this was my rock bottom moment.
So knowing that you had to make a decision between the family and the alcohol, you chose the alcohol.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. And went and got a bottle, got obviously really, really hammered, passed out. And I think the only reason I didn't get arrested was because my blood pressure was spiked so high. They were afraid I might keel over in jail. So they took me to the hospital. And that's the point where, I woke up in the hospital or came to. And at that point, I'm laying there and I'm thinking, a lot of people say they got down on their knees and prayed. And I don't even know if this was a prayer. I suppose it was, for lack of a better definition. But I literally was just thinking, I don't care who or what. If they can tell me how I don't have to live like this anymore, I don't want to do it anymore. I finally surrendered and was ready to ask for real help, And I got lucky. I had what would, straight out of the book, a spiritual experience at that point to where that obsession was lifted. I couldn't get into the 30-day rehab for 10 days just because all the insurance and all that kind of stuff trying to get worked out. Granted, I was under 24-hour surveillance at home. I'd gotten discharged from the hospital after that happened, but I had no desire to try to sneak out and go get a bottle. I was done.
Wow.
And I got real lucky. I know there's a lot of people that struggle. Got up to rehab, and, it was one of those where I was even the oddball up out there because there's a lot of people that show up still and they'll tell them, don't stop drinking before you get here. Just keep doing whatever you're doing and we'll take care of you when you get here. So I became somebody else's roommate when I first got there. Great guy from St. Louis. He'd been there like 3 weeks, 2 weeks maybe. And then he checked out and I got one of those that, guy from the state of Washington. And that guy was like practically comatose in our room for like 48 hours. And then they got him off of whatever that meds are that they give him to bring you down. And again, ended up being just an absolutely phenomenal guy. He and I got to be really good friends. I haven't talked to him, unfortunately, in quite a while, but just a great guy. And we had a lot of fun, being roommates. And, but that whole time, and there was a point, I know I was laying there in bed about 2 weeks into it thinking, if this doesn't take, I'm going to be dead within 6 weeks to 6 months. So I have always kind of kept that, what I consider a healthy fear of ever cracking a bottle open again.
Yeah. Now you said before you went to rehab though, you were at home, like you went back to your house because your wife had kicked you out.
Yeah, she let me come back since there really wasn't any place else to go. And, and then once it was apparent that I was going to go into rehab, then she let me come back in and because again, I didn't have anywhere else to go. And I think, again, she and I never really talked about it in terms of kind of what was going through her mind, although I don't know that she would have let me if I hadn't had all my family members coming down to keep an eye on me, because she still had to work and take care of the kids and all that kind of stuff. So like I said, I was under 24-hour surveillance. That was 10 days. But honest to God, I had no desire to try to go out and get a bottle. Because I know, prior to that event, there would have been nothing that would have stopped me from running up to the liquor store.
Right.
Absolutely nothing. I would have told them all, you know, to go pound sand and wouldn't have been very nice about it. And unless they were going to tackle me, and even then I probably could have got away and made it up there. I wouldn't have been stopped, but I just didn't. I got lucky. I had that obsession lifted, and it carried me. You know, everybody talks about the pink cloud, and I had that pink cloud for a long, long time. Not that I didn't have, you know, I still had the little voices bouncing around in my head and a lot of other things, but I had gotten, you know, that relief and that sense of being able to get hope again was so strong that it pushed a lot of that other stuff out for a long time for me. And then that allowed me to, you know, really get into the program and start, get a sponsor and start figuring out, okay, we got not step 1 in the 12 steps. So we've taken that first, the first thing of stopping drinking and going through rehab. Now, what do I got to do to start maintaining this? Because obviously my life has got to change, and I'm willing to make that change. And you guys have heard the joke before. I might as well throw it out on here too. But I know I'm not, and I went into rehab like a sponge. I didn't care what they told me to do. If that meant that I was going to stay sober and I wouldn't have to get insane and drink again, I was going to do it. And, I always joke about hey, Brett, you got to, get you a chicken outfit and a green tambourine and go bang it on I-40. And
I used that the other day, Brett. That stuck with me when you told me that. And because I was the same way. What do I do?
Yeah.
Just in a fear. There was a healthy amount of fear in that.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to go back to that. Please tell me what to do.
Yeah, I would have done it. I'd have needed some help finding a chicken outfit, but I would. Point me in the right direction. I'll go get it. And I'll bang this tambourine all day long.
Okay, so so you got out of the in treatment and you started your journey. Like you just said, you got a sponsor, you bounced into the steps. So what was that journey like? So, the obsession was gone. You're divorced or getting a divorce or?
At the time I got out of. So, no, what ended up happening was, again, I didn't have a job.
Yeah.
And keep in mind, and this was in Wichita. It was in 2010 when I had my flame out and came out the other side, surrendered and going into rehab. And things, if you'll recall, from an economic standpoint, 2008, we had the big fallout. Well, in Wichita, because the primary manufacturing
Boeing
you had was aerospace.
Right.
Well, there's always a roughly 12, 18, 24-month lag in the aircraft manufacturing environment to economic pressures. So 2008, where I was at, was one of the best years we'd ever had. 2010, and that was when, earlier in 2010 was when, before I had my hospital trip, was when I got let go and from work. So I'm out of a job, number one. So we are kind of jumping too far ahead. When I get done with rehab, I'm not necessarily welcome back home, but everybody at the rehab place that I was at was like, you can't go home without a job. You can't be by yourself. So they're not big here, but in Wichita, I got into an Oxford house, so a sober living environment. And so it's all self-regulated, basically got 4 rules. Don't use or drink, pay your rent, do your chores, get along.
And curfew.
We actually didn't even, as long as you wrote out where you were going to be.
Yeah.
So
I got a young fellow that's in an Oxford house or sober living. Mm-hmm. That's the curfew.
Yeah, I guess there was kind of a curfew type deal on it, but if you weren't going to be there for the night, you just had to write out where you were going.
Right.
And it was expected. I guess another rule was that you would at least attend a meeting a week, if not more. So I ended up doing that, and I'm looking for a job, but it's pretty depressed. And especially, like I said, I've got kind of a niche career field to where there's nothing out there. And so I stayed in Oxford House for 9 months. finally decide to move back home, move home. Still don't have a job. I had one that actually looked like it was going to pan out. I'd even signed an acceptance letter, and then they did a reorg. It's the first time that I ever actually got a severance check for a job I never had.
Wow.
Crazy. And I don't, looking back on it, it could have been so I didn't sue them or something like that. I don't know, but it was just crazy. Anyway, my scope of where I was trying to find work kept getting bigger and bigger. And lo and behold, I get this phone call out of the blue from a recruiter for a job that was in Green River, Wyoming.
Wow.
So it was cut by this time.
Is that even on the map?
Yeah.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, it is. Mostly just because it's one of the bigger cities in Wyoming at 12.6. They've got towns that are like only 250 that make the map, just because if they didn't, there wouldn't be anything on the map. Right. But anyway, so it was decided, we're not packing up the whole family and moving to Green River. I'm just going to take this on just to get back into the workforce, and I will continue to try to get, back to Kansas. And, well, here we are 15 years later, and I still haven't made it back to Kansas.
Oh, Brett.
But having said that, I'm okay with that. Yeah. I mean, I think everything everything always happens for a reason. Yeah. I'm a firm believer in that. And I had other opportunities, even the Wyoming. I mean, yeah, there was a part of me back, when I got out of college, I wanted to go west, Colorado, Wyoming, Arizona, New Mexico. And I ended up in Kentucky.
Oh my.
Didn't quite pan out, but we got over that, and Kentucky was it was a great state. It was a great opportunity. I enjoyed being there. But Wyoming, obviously I didn't enjoy not being around the family and the kids especially, but it was a whole new world for Brett, and I had a lot of fun in Wyoming. For as much as I could, being more or less on my own, but it was just a whole different environment, different type of people, different, just everything,
So you said you like to fish. I mean,
yes.
Wyoming sounds like a perfect place for a guy who likes the outdoors. But you also said that you pheasant hunt too. So
yeah, I wasn't in an area where there was any pheasant in Wyoming, but I was right next to, Green River is at basically the beginning of the Flaming Gorge Reservoir, which I had never heard of. It's like the 19th largest reservoir in the U.S.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's huge. Goes all the way into Utah. And, that was a 20-minute drive. I get down there without a boat or anything. You could just fish off the bank. And if fishing wasn't all that good, you're in this high desert. I just go exploring, climbing rocks and finding rattlesnakes and all kinds of crazy stuff like that. So it was, I think, I look back on it. It was maybe my higher power was saying, you still need a little break. Let's just let you get out here, get some fresh air, get your head together, so to speak. But there were times, especially that first night after my first day on the job. So it took me all day, obviously, to drive out there on a Sunday, show up to work out there on Monday. And I'd already found where the meeting was, the meeting hall, and it was at 8:00, downtown Green River. And I'm in the hotel, and I'm literally white knuckling it until 8:00. And then, it's like a lot of people say when you go into an AA room, as soon as I walked in, man, I'm safe.
Isn't that funny how that works?
Safe. Yeah, it really was. And great group there. It wasn't overly large, obviously, because it's a small town, but they took me under their wing, and just like every other AA meeting that I've ever been to, and helped me out, and have some very fond memories of the people that I met in Wyoming and the things that I got a chance to do and see. I took some road trips to be able to go, into the park and just other places of Wyoming. There's all kinds of, off the beaten path places up there, and it was a lot of fun. But I was still trying to get back, and kind of back to your original question. So I I couldn't make it back to Kansas, but I found an opportunity in Nebraska. So at least I shaved off 8 hours of that 14-hour drive, out to Green River. And that actually ended up working out well because my youngest wanted to be in the animal sciences group, and having grown up, it kind of goes back to your question when we were at break. If you want to be I always joke about it. Most kids always say they want to be a vet when they're a kid. Mm-hmm. My youngest never deviated from that all the way through school. So if you want to get into like the animal sciences and you live in Kansas, you go to K-State. She grew up in a KU household.
What?
I didn't have a problem with it. Mom wasn't so crazy about the idea. What? And the youngest was like, absolutely. She's like, I'm sure it's a good school. She's like, but you guys raised me up in a KU household, and the first time they start making fun of the Jayhawks, I'm going to get mad. So instead she decided, and since I was living in Nebraska, to go to the University of Nebraska in Lincoln.
Nice.
That's the other one. And we were able to get her in-state tuition since I was there. So again, all these things work for a reason. It's crazy. Yes, they do. And, but having been, now we've been out of the house now for 5 years, and hard to, and I don't want to get into any of that, but it wasn't like, the wife and I had a real solid relationship before I crossed over that threshold.
Yeah, I get that.
Once I did, that made things 100 times worse. I take full responsibility for that.
Yeah.
But being able to do the damage control when you're 14 hours away, it just wasn't going to work out. Or it didn't work out. And so eventually we kind of just decided that, it's probably time that we each go our own way.
Yeah.
Anyway, I did make it back to Kansas. It was something that it was a job that I probably shouldn't, or looking back on it, I shouldn't have taken to begin with. I did because it got me back to Kansas, but it only lasted a year. Part of it had to do with COVID, but I was actually glad that they had to shut everything down. And then shortly thereafter was when Arkansas called. So.
Right. Well, we're glad you came to Arkansas.
Well,
Yes, we are.
So you have a good relationship with your daughters today, yeah?
I do. And like you mentioned earlier, my oldest has got 2 boys with a third on the way right now. So I'm excited about that.
Right.
I'm excited for her. My youngest has moved out to the East Coast, so I don't get to see her as often. And she's a lot like her old man. She's kind of she doesn't, reach out a whole lot. If I call her, we can talk for half hour to an hour or something, but it's just not kind of in her nature to kind of make that first step. And it's, and I get it. It kind of goes back to what we were talking about at the very beginning. I mean, she's like me, only even a little bit more so, in that she's very, very comfortable in her own skin, doing her own thing. Hey, if you want to call me and see how things are going, I'll be happy to tell you about it. But it's not even like, I don't even think she thinks of it as like, I'm not going out of my way to call you. It's just, she just doesn't think about it, period. It's just not in her. And that's, I can understand that because I'm kind of the same way. There are things that I catch myself. It's like, why did I not do that? Type deal. But anyway,
well, don't feel bad. I have 3 kids, and 2 of them, I'm close with all of them, but 2 of them have that same, it's just, I don't know why it is, but the other one that you guys know about, I talk, lately we've been talking every day. In fact, while we're on the show here, he's pinged me twice. I had to text him and go, I'm in a show, and he wrote back, oh, awesome, we'll catch up later. It's just, I don't know why it is. It just is. So the one with the 2 kids and the one on the way. So is that where, when you take off from here and you say you're gone, is that where you're going?
Yeah. And so my oldest is the one that's got 2 with 1 on the way. My youngest right now says she doesn't want kids. So we'll kind of see. I'm kind of hopeful maybe she'll change her mind one day, but she may not. She's in that generation, to where a lot of them just right now don't want to have kids. And
I just found out I'm going to be a grandpa because of that, right? I mean, just like, wow, we're not ready for kids forever. That went on, and I joked with you guys how I was going to buy them a how-to book, here's how you make kids. Well, they surprised me a couple of weeks ago. Boom, finally going to make me a grandpa. I'm like, geez, I'm going to be alive to see this. That's awesome.
I just, I know she would be a phenomenal mom. And I just think, and again, for me, having kids was the greatest thing I ever did.
That's right.
Hands down. Just the greatest thing I ever did. And so I just, I think, I hope that she rethinks that at some point. And if she doesn't, that's fine too. I'm okay with that. But it's one of those where, like I said, I think she was a phenomenal mother, and it was one of the greatest things I ever did. So,
yeah. So, do you have a relationship with your kid's mother today? Any relationship at all?
It's very amicable. Not that we reach out to one another that much, and if we do, it's almost always about the kids for one thing or the other. But she has been, she did something for me the night my dad died. And fortunately, my youngest at the time was actually living with my grandparents, so she was there too. It was late or way early in the morning, so she was up in bed asleep, but I did end up waking her up and letting her know that, her granddad had passed and whatnot. And then we all finally, after they got him out of the house and all that kind of stuff, finally went to bed. My ex called me at about 6:30 in the morning. I had sent a text out to my oldest. So, excuse me, she must have said something to her mom. And the ex called me at like 6:30 in the morning to see how I was doing. And when I saw her at the funeral, I mean, I kind of lost it and was like, you don't realize how important that was to me. I really needed to hear, a friendly voice when you called, because my mom and my sister were there. I'm the only, male. Just kind of one of those things with roles at that point. And, it was just nice to, that meant a lot to me. And she's kept me up on, the unfortunate thing is they haven't been good events, but people that I knew back in Wichita, some things have happened, and she'll find them on Facebook or something like that and send them to me. And, at least I keep me in the loop type deal.
Sure. That's nice. So let's talk about your program. We already established that, you've got the first wave of the basics down, the things that all of us preach and harp on. Go to meetings, don't drink, get a sponsor, work the steps. So, I mean, I know that you're a regular, and I'm an occasional visitor to the jail system these days, but you're a regular there. And what's that do for you?
Well, that just helps me keep everything in a tight perspective. I enjoy going to the rehab places too for the same reason, but I tell you what, and it's not that you haven't, that I haven't seen or heard of just some horrifying stories of people that are in rehab, but those guys in a jail cell are, and they've already got, so many knocks against them, so to speak. So it's just so much more. And especially now where the system is, they come down if they want to come down. They're not forced to come down. And it fluctuates. We had 8 last night. Last week, there was almost 15. Yeah. So you never really know who all is going to show up and this, that, and the other. But there seems to be, at least in the last couple of years, there's always been a couple core guys that, I don't know how they're doing now that they're out, if they've gotten out. But you really thought, or I was really hopeful, because it seemed like they really got it. Yeah. See it in their eyes. You could hear it in what they were saying. And if they just got, somebody to throw them a bone once they got out, I thought they had a good shot.
I noticed when I was there the last time, maybe it's been 5-6 weeks, I went, man, these guys really connect with you. So I'm glad that you go there regularly. But just to see these guys, it's not like you're E.F. Hutton, so you're about to say something, you got everybody's attention. They really value your insight. So you've really connected with these guys on a solid level.
Well, thanks. I don't really think it has as much to do with anything that I may say. Usually what comes out is I'm just reiterating what they're already saying, just trying to bring it back into the framework of a recovery program.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And last night is a prime example. A guy had gotten into an altercation that, according to him, he didn't start. And I know we laugh about that, but I am of the opinion, based on what the others said there last night, that that's true.
Yeah.
You know, it started earlier in the day and it just
Escalated.
Yeah, it escalated to where, you know, now he's got to spend 6 hours in the hole, and he's concerned that his visitation on Sunday is going to be in jeopardy. That's just standard practice, apparently. They separate him, put him in the hole, go do their investigation. Had enough people say, no, man, he didn't do anything. It was all this other guy. You know, he got out of the hole. It's not going to have an impact on his visitation on Sunday and the whole 9 yards. And so a couple things, you know, he kind of kept rambling about this. And I'm like, well, you know, for starters, it sounds like you still got an issue with this, because he was talking about having to, you know, I'm doing all the right things. I was just trying to make, you know, I didn't want to have any altercation. This, that, and the other. I'm like, I got that. But obviously it's still chewing you up. It's already done. So I'm saying, you know, God forbid there's another event that you get involved with that's like this. But if it does, remember what happened on this go round, and, you know, walk away, turn the other cheek, do something different next time, or if nothing else, accept the fact that these are the rules. This is what's going to happen. I know that I did everything that I should have done, and just be okay with that. That's part of these tools that we ask you to sit there and practice every day so they become habitual for when you get out. And I think, you know, but he was still spun up, you know, and I get it, but it's like, okay, but if you're working a solid program and everything, you'll realize that there's no sense in crying over spilt milk anymore. It's time to move on.
So I'm looking at, I didn't know you in 2006 when you were, or even prior to 2010, obviously, when, you know, you're passed out in the garage and don't really give a whole lot of care about anything other than your whiskey. And here you are 20 years later coaching guys about having a life. How does that make you feel?
Well, I put it just helps me with perspective, because, again, I know that had a couple of events in my past gone a slightly different route, I could be right there in there with them.
Sure.
And only for the grace of God am I not, you know. That second DUI that I got, I was on an interstate, and they called me in. Somebody called me in because I was doing like 20 miles an hour and it was all over the road. People are doing 80 miles an hour with semi trucks. How I didn't get, you know, in a black truck. You know, I mean, lights are on, but still, you want to talk about lucky. And so, you know, there's a lot of, I just look at it, two things. One is the perspective. The other thing, and again, this is just me, when they show up, that to me is equivalent to kind of going back to the responsibility statement. You know what I mean?
I will be there.
And so if there's one guy that shows up, but he wants to talk about, you know, recovery and what's eating on him and how he can get better, then it's my obligation to try to be there.
All right.
So
let me throw you some softballs here. So
I don't have my glasses on.
You're excited, right? So we'll put them on a stick for you.
Thank you.
So we use the term higher power in every episode. So describe your relationship with your higher power, what it looks like, and you know, feel free to say whatever's on your heart and in your mind.
So probably two things. One, I was one that I never had a problem with accepting the concept of a higher power. Okay. Well before I even ever got sober. You know, between being in the mountains in Colorado or being on the beach in Texas or even just being out, you know, in the plains of Kansas, you know, I can look around and say, man, this is not just randomness. You know, I mean, something's at work here. I had no problem with that. The problem that I had especially when I got into the program, was kind of from a macro and a micro level. On a macro level, I get it. We'll never understand the whole universe, and that's because it's so vast and so huge, and whoever, and God that created it is just immense. We'll never be able to really comprehend it. So why would God give, two poops about little old Brett on that micro level? And it's been the program that has showed me, and especially as I've, earlier on, even with that, the next morning after my flame out, that, man, he is so powerful. He can handle that too. Now, having said that, continually building a relationship with my higher power is the cornerstone of what I still need to work on. I'm nowhere near where I feel like I should be. Even at, and I think a lot of people could probably say the same thing, but certainly for as long as I've been sober, I feel like I should be further along, kind of on that spiritual relationship standpoint. So that's where I probably struggle still the most on trying to figure out how to get there.
Okay.
No problems believing. I know for a fact that, I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for higher power. And I even look at it, I'm up to, I think, 5 now. I don't like calling them epiphanies, but 5 events that just absolutely solidified in my mind. And the first 2 of them were my 2 daughters. Being there when they were born and looking at them for the first time, I'm like, man, this is not just biology and chemistry at work. Something else is at play here.
Right.
My grandfather, there's a story, when my grandfather passed away, although there is a drinking piece to that too. Not to get into it, but Dad and I got absolutely lit the day that my granddad passed away. And I know that kind of troubled him a little bit. He'd asked me several times, like, you think people would think we were crazy for going out drinking like we did after Dad died? And I'm like, no, I think that's what he would have wanted. And quite frankly, screw what everybody else would have thought. That's what we did. Anyway, so there was that one. There was my coming to in the hospital. And then the last one was being there the night that my dad passed away. It was one of those where I went in to check on him. Something didn't seem right, but he was still moving. I went out to the garage to get something to drink, and something hit me, and like, you got to go back in and check on him again. And I went back in again, and he was gone. And so again, something somewhere told me, this is what you got to do. And I kind of look at it, and I'm happier that it was me and not my mother for my sister. Now, obviously, I had to come out and tell him he's gone. But and we went through the motions of what we had to do, called the police, and they did their investigation. It's like I said, it's like 2:00 in the morning, and I'm like, I might as well have a cup of coffee. And my mom's like, I think I'll have a cup of coffee. And my sister's like, yeah, that sounds good. So we just sat there at the table, had a cup of coffee while they were finishing up, going to get him to the funeral home. And then, we finally tootled off to bed like at, I don't know, 3 or 4 in the morning. Got a couple hours of sleep. And then, like I said, my ex called me, and God, that was just amazing. I'll never be able to thank her enough for that, but I needed that. And then going through, so now it's starting to go through all the prep work and all that kind of stuff for having a funeral. And I know some of us in here have had to go through that, and it's not fun.
Yeah.
It's not fun.
It's nice that we can do it sober.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
And, that was definitely a situation where not once did I ever sit there. And he still had his scotch and, all kinds of stuff up there in the cabinet and everything.
Right.
Never even crossed my mind. And anyway, but so, yeah, I mean, when on the higher power deal, I still don't feel like I've got the relationship that I should have. And that's on me, obviously. That's it. I just got to keep working at it.
What's that saying in the program we have? Sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly, right? These are some standard toss questions. Let me just pause for a sec. You guys have any? Okay. So these are some standard questions. You've been on in the studio before when I've asked these questions, so I'm going to kind of get your thoughts on them. I'm going to throw some buzzwords at you, and you tell me what they mean to you. Maybe today, or maybe you can compare them how you used to look at them. Whatever comes to your heart and how you want to answer. You hear the word expectations. What did it mean to you before? What's it mean to you now? Or top of the dome, what comes to your mind?
Well, I probably have a couple. I mean, I don't want to go into a whole lot on this. One of the things, just because of the nature of the work that I do and everything, I mean, expectations are one of those things where I go back to a business class that I took a long time ago, but it made sense to me. And it said, primarily in the business environment, but I think it holds true even at home, that the biggest culprit of conflict is unknown or unclear expectations. So, I like to make sure that, at least from a business and even a personal standpoint, if I have a certain level of expectation on primarily a behavior, on what you're going to do, what you're going to say, this, that, and the other, I have an obligation to kind of let you know. That's how I look at things, The other side of that is, I have to be careful that I don't, like I said, I'm still in essence someday hoping to get back to Kansas. That is an expectation, but I try to make it to where I'm not, not getting spun up around that level of expectation every day, or every week or every month. It's like, everything's been going pretty good so far. I've been on a good path. Let's just try to stay focused and, one step ahead of the other. If it happens, it happens. We'd really like it to happen. So I do have an expectation of that, but I also think that I've got the tools involved that if it doesn't, well, we can deal with that too. Okay. And kind of have been,
Okay. And you hear the word immersion. What comes to your mind?
To be honest with you, I wouldn't have necessarily thought of immersion within the recovery program if it hadn't have been probably for you and listening to you talk and these podcasts, as well as, the times we've been together at at the rehab centers or the jail. Immersion prior to listening to you, I would have just thought of something getting dropped in a bucket of water or something. I literally would have never really thought about it. But in terms of the program and kind of...
I anoint you.
Yeah.
Right.
Come on in, boys. The water is fine. But that would be one of those tools that I've learned along the way. I still learn. We talk about that all the time. Mm-hmm. And so that would be a relatively new one that I've come that, I would probably credit you on that immersion, getting yourself around other people that are going through the same thing that you're going through, have the same expectations in terms of how they want to stay sober and clean and but still want to have fun and don't want to be a stick in the mud, just trying to stay away from, triggers or anything like that. So that's basically what I think of is the tribe. When we all get together, that's an immersion for me to get together with others that are like me, and let's go have some fun. Let's go do something fun.
I want to go back to something you said, and you're talking about immersion. So when you got to Green River, I almost said Great Falls, but Green River, Wyoming, you were talking about white knuckling it. Mm-hmm. And then whenever you came to Arkansas, how important was it that you immersed yourself into an AA program?
Oh, it's very important. In fact, when I went to Nebraska for my interview, got online, to find and this was an even smaller town than Green River, but they had 2 AA groups there in town. Each one only met once a week, but one of them was meeting that night. So that was important enough to me to go to that meeting, even before I had my interview with the job that took me to Nebraska, just to find out, what's this group like? How you guys doing? I mean, is this something that's going to help me stay sober? And And sure enough, it was, So the same thing happened. I mean, I knew. And when I go back to the Green River, not only that white knuckling, I went every day. Fortunately, they had a meeting every day. I went every day for like 2 weeks straight. Just to, you talk about, and I think generally when you're talking about immersion and maybe even where you're at, immersion within the program, to me, the program is just as equally just hanging around a bunch of other guys that are all, in the same boat. So that's really the way where I look at it, probably more often. But yeah, I get it. And when I got here, absolutely tried, hit a couple different ones, and at that time, I mean, I was still, I had some time, I could be okay, but the fact of it is that little voice in the back of my head's like, you may be okay, but you've still got to, do the deal.
Yeah.
And, so yeah, that's where, hit a couple different meetings, found the one that I ended up liking the most, and still hit other ones. I mean, and that's one of the other things we haven't really talked about. I mean, probably another podcast, but we talked about the horse races, and we talked about, going out to Eureka Springs, but something we haven't done for a while, but we'll get together today's a prime example. You guys got, I'm sure, other things you could have done, but you came here today just to be here and listen to me speak. So we'll load up and we'll go when, one of our brethren or sisters is giving a talk and
oh yeah.
That, again, that to me is that's that immersion into the program, which from a word standpoint, I learned from you. From an action standpoint, in all honesty, I learned it in Arkansas. You guys, I know a couple of you have heard me say this time and time again. My program got exponentially better when I got to Arkansas. I mean, it wasn't that it was bad. There just wasn't as many opportunities for doing the kind of things that we've all been doing for the last couple of years. And it's just been phenomenal.
Yeah, Jeremy, I'm glad you brought that up. I met so many people that the word sobriety has lost its priority, happens when they transfer. And, I was in the military for a lot of years, so we never lived anywhere longer than 18, months to 3 years. And sometimes I just didn't get locked in or hooked up or something. So when you talk about your transfers here, you went Wyoming, Nebraska, Arkansas. You got right into a program, and that says a lot about maintaining your sobriety and its priorities. Do you have any particular words that are kind of like Brett's mantra words, or even cliches that you lean on?
Oh, heck yeah. The guy that sits there and pops off movie quotes all the time. Man has not moved 1 inch from the slime from which it evolved from, Pat.
Which movie was that?
Jekyll and Hyde together again.
Do I need to put that on my movie list? It sounds like, Pat, you've seen it.
No. Have you seen it? No, this was early. And when I saw it we had a rain day at work when I was in summertime in high school. I worked for a contractor, and this buddy of mine, we just went and got stoned out of our minds and watched this movie. There's a part in it where this guy's going through customs. And they're like, do you have anything to declare? And that's what he says. It was one of those where we looked at each other and like, what the hell did he just say? Rewound it, watched it again, and just busted out laughing. Anyway.
Just had to be there.
Just had to be there. But, everybody's going to think, man, you had a bigger problem with pot than you did alcohol. No, not really. That was just what we had available at that particular time. I don't know that I have necessarily any kind of a mantra or anything like that. Most of my, I use the cliches that are in the program, when they come to me, let go and let God one day at a time, sure. This too shall pass. And a lot of those kind of things. I would say for me, the biggest thing, and I used to say playing the tape, all the way forward. Given the fact that, like in the jail or in rehab, you got a bunch of kids anymore that don't know what tape is, what you're talking about, videotape. So I talk about the replay booth. Let's go look at the replay booth. And that, to me, is probably the one thing that no matter what is swirling around in my head, I can just sit there and think, well, we've been here before, and let's go back to the replay booth. We don't want to do that, so we're going to have to do something different. And
that's good.
That's probably it.
All right. Before I give you the final word here, do you guys have anything you want to add or say? Questions?
If we're just wrapping up.
Yeah, we're moving into wrap up.
This is where we wrap up.
Yeah, we're getting there, man. We're getting there, brother.
So like Brett was talking, we met Brett, or I met Brett, when I started going to our particular group. And, I kind of found Brett as a standoffish kind of guy, kind of like maybe not standoffish, but I didn't find you approachable at first. And then, we start doing things together, i.e. going to the jail, Sober Fest, all this. And what I found is, man, Brett is a wealth of knowledge, not only in the program setting, but outside the program. And that's, when I look at the people around me, I want them to be overall. I need people in the program. I've got people in the program, but I've also need people outside the program, and when you can find a person that is both, so much better, so much better. I know I was trying to bring it in,
that makes sense,
but, and it's like the other day, I said I had a moral dilemma, and I was sitting there and I was like, let me text Brett, see what Brett thinks, and he just gave me this, hey, you know what you need to do. It was simple. It was straightforward. And that's what I need. I need people that break it down shotgun style to me, and it's straightforward. It's not, we know what we need to do in this program. And, to have a person that I can call and run things by, that's just more tools in my tool bag. And Brett's one of those guys for me.
That's a good point.
Thank you, Brett.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Arkansas was founded first, so you came to the best, a little bit of Kansas in Arkansas, but we get on a level, I think another thing that, we're always looking for similarities, and I'm a huge sports guy. Well, Brett loves the Kansas Jayhawks as much as I love my Arkansas Razorbacks. And that's something that we have, and it makes it, when you find people that you have those things in common, man, the world becomes a whole lot better place. And I've said it many a times, God puts people in our lives that we need at that point, and Brett's one of those guys. So thank you.
Good word. Good word.
Yeah, I just kind of want to echo what Pat said. Brett, you're a cool dude, man. You're a valued member of the tribe. And I know we've had some treatment center experiences that were, I had tears running down my face with just thinking, wow, this is awesome that I think we help some people. And, I think we're all pretty service oriented, me probably being one of the less of the group, but everybody in here has got a strong service background, and we kind of keep each other. I mean, it didn't come by me naturally to just jump into service work. It was part of the tribe. And, like, what are you guys doing tomorrow night? Oh, we're all going out to the jail, or we're going to a treatment center, or here's a sign up sheet for a treatment center. And along with, my sponsor who got me in there just 4 or 5 days sober. And I remember when I said, will you be my sponsor? And he said, yeah, I don't have anything to do tomorrow night. He got me into a treatment center, and I was scared. I was nervous as a cat on a hot tin roof because I thought he might ask me to go ahead and do you want to check in here? I was like 5 days sober, and I was scared to death. But the next time I went, I had a little more experience, strength, and hope, and then it came on. And I know that Brett, you and I have done some, treatment centers together and the jail together, and that is just that's like a cherry on top for my program. I know guys that can do a meeting a week and they're fine with that, and they don't ever really get into the service stuff. For us, I think that for us in the tribe, maybe that's not enough. I know it's not enough for me. I need to get in there, and I need
That's right.
Man, and I, if I'm not, what do you say, Bob? A step away from the light is a step into the darkness.
Yeah. And
that is so true for me. But Brett, man, just glad to have you here, buddy, and glad to know you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, and I don't know you overwhelmingly well, right? And that was the thing, is that whenever I first met you, it's kind of like what Pat said, is that I found you. I was like, man, I don't know, like this guy is really approachable, like how it's going to work out. But over the last few years, and I met you at Ralph's house. It was the first time I ever met you. It was on a Sunday morning at 12 and 12, and you are an absolutely genuine person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that is a quality that is lost in today's society. You are a genuine person, and whenever you share and show love to another human being, you mean it. And that's what I have experienced over the last few years, is getting to know you over the last couple of years, really. Like when you and I see each other, it's like instant, like we walk up to each other and start talking about, how we're doing and, what's going on. And I thank you. Thank you. I always learn something from you every time you share.
Well, thank you, all of you. I very much appreciate it. Thank you all for being here, and I'll sum it up this way, Bob, and I talked with Pat a little bit about this. I really was reluctant to do this. I had committed to you, and I knew I was going to do it, but I really, really didn't want to.
Sure.
And two things. One, you and Pat, and Jeremy, Josh, and Sloan made it extremely easy to do. And two, I'm extremely grateful that I had the opportunity to do it. So, we have some absolutely phenomenal people that we all move in and around. I mean, not all of them are here. We don't see them every single week, but there's just such a solid group of truly outstanding people in this area, doing the right thing, working a great program, getting involved. And more importantly than all of that, they have become very, very good friends, to me at least. They're very, very good friends.
That's right.
And, so I don't know that I really have anything else to close with other than the fact that, I thank all of you guys again. You all helped keep me sober again today. I try to make sure that the guys in the jail know that every time I go in there. And I just, it was a good experience. So thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Brett. Yeah. If you don't have an epitaph already for your headstone, I got one for you, brother. Suit up and show up, because that's you.
Well, Thank you.
Yeah. No, I didn't ask you about the word commitment, but if I would have, we could answer it for you, man. When you say you're going to do something, you do it. And I admire that in people, because it's one of my pet peeves when somebody says they're going to do something and they don't even use the word try. They just say, I'm going to do it. And then they don't. But if you say you're going to do it, we know you're going to do it. Yeah. So kudos to you on that.
Well, thank you.
All right. So yeah, I appreciate you guys coming out. You guys are close to me, obviously, very involved in the podcast. All you have a heart for people. That's why we do this show, to get, hope to the hurting. I pray that out there somewhere, somebody in the listening audience, got something from what they heard today. And so thanks for, guys taking your time out on an incredibly gorgeous day. And that is a wrap for today's show. So I don't know what you have to say about it, folks, but please leave your comments either at shoutoutfromthepit.com or shoutoutfromthepit.com. That's the only place we can leave comments. We did start a Facebook page a couple of weeks ago. It's very fledgling. I think we've got 120 members. I'm not even sure yet. We're still trying to get the word out. We can push. I'm learning. Redbeard does all this stuff, but you can push it by paying for ads. We don't do that. We have a shoestring budget. So this is my way of marketing it. Please go find Shout Out from the Pit on Facebook, and become a member, like, subscribe, share. There's a lot of garbage out there today. And, the network of folks that we know, we're trying to live in the positive, trying to look for good stuff. So, become a member and post stuff, memes, funnies, success stories, get the word out so we can become the people that our higher power meant for us to be. All right. So, leave your thoughts and comments on shoutoutfromthepit.com. And remember, if you want to feel good about yourself, man, you sure heard it today. Go out and do something for someone else. And finally, as always, you are not alone. And this is awkward for a lot of you guys out there especially, but if no one's told you they love you today,
we love
you. So God bless you. Have an outstanding American Day. This is Bob, the Old Rucker. Peace out. That's it. That's a wrap.